Jorge Martin sat in front of the cameras at Le Mans and told the paddock he and Marco Bezzecchi are not friends. He framed it as harmony, as respect, as two teammates who will help each other beat the other brands. But listen again, because what he actually said is that the man he sits 1 point behind in the championship, the man he just defeated in front of Aprilia's executive board, is someone he owes nothing to. And that line was not diplomacy. That line was a warning. So why is Aprilia pretending this is a normal title fight? And why is the rider they have built the next decade around suddenly the one with everything to lose? Because this is not a title fight in the usual sense. Aprilia are not managing two rivals chasing the same dream. They are managing a man who is leaving and a man who is staying, and only one of them has any reason to play along. The factory has already decided who its future is. Martin knows it. Bezzecchi knows it. Everyone in that garage knows it. The problem is the future has not been told it is currently in second place. The standings tell the cleanest version of the story. After 5 rounds, Bezzecchi led the championship by a single point. He had been the early benchmark. He had been the rider Aprilia pointed to when they explained why their long climb back to the front was no accident. He had won 5 Grands Prix in a row across last year, and this one, a streak only Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi have matched in recent memory. Then Le Mans happened. Martin won the sprint. Martin won the Grand Prix. He started from the 3rd row and beat his teammate in a straight fight on the bike Bezzecchi was supposed to lead. That is when the question stopped being theoretical. The Italian was reportedly assigned to be the long-term Aprilia project leader. Martin was reportedly assigned a Yamaha contract for 2027. Suddenly, the rider with the exit visa is the one outperforming the rider with the multi-year deal. Aprilia's public position is that both riders will be treated equally. That sounds noble. It is not. Because equal treatment is not a strategy when one of your riders is leaving for a direct competitor. Every point Martin scores is a point that walks out of the door in November. Every win sharpens the marketing campaign Yamaha get for free next year. And the longer Aprilia maintain the fiction of neutrality, the more Bezzecchi has to ask himself why the factory rebuilding the project around him refuses to actually back him. And the bike is not the problem. Aprilia have won 4 of the 5 Sundays this year, scoring 1-2 finishes at 2 of them and locking out the entire podium at Le Mans. Ducati's factory team has gone 10 Sundays without a podium, their worst drought in over a decade. This is not a season where the engineers can quietly favour one side of the garage and hope nobody notices. Whoever loses this fight loses it on talent, on tyre management, on racecraft, which means whatever Aprilia decide behind closed doors will be exposed in public, lap by lap. This is where the framing breaks, because there is one Italian voice in the paddock who has already said the quiet part out loud. Carlo Pernat, one of the most respected commentators in Italian MotoGP, said earlier this year that Martin's move to Yamaha is more financial than technical. He said Martin is going to Yamaha to retire. That is not a casual line. That is a veteran insider telling the paddock that the man currently chasing a world title is treating it as a parachute payment. And he is not the only one drawing that picture. Max Biaggi, 6-time world champion and MotoGP legend, called Martin truly superior at Le Mans. He did not just mean faster. He meant the dynamic inside that garage has already shifted, whether Aprilia want to acknowledge it or not. Suddenly, the polite, "We are not friends but not enemies either" line reads very differently. It reads like a man who has already mentally left. And here is the part nobody wants to say. Aprilia have already gone public with their black rules, a McLaren-style internal protocol for how the title fight will be policed. But when Martin was asked directly about the strategy his team boss had prepared, he said he had not been told anything. Either he is lying or he is deliberately keeping his options open. Both options say the same thing. Martin is not playing along. It gets worse. The widely reported 4-year deal that brings Francesco Bagnaia to Aprilia for 2027 means Bezzecchi is not just defending a championship lead. He is auditioning. The factory has already lined up a two-time world champion to sit next to him next year. The man branded as the long-term leader is about to share a garage with one of the most decorated riders of his generation. And if he loses this title to a man on his way out the door, the conversation inside Noele stops being about whether Bezzecchi is the future. It becomes about whether he was ever really first choice at all. And do not forget what Aprilia did for Martin to get him here. Team boss Massimo Rivola publicly said the factory stood by Martin through the worst year of his career, that they did not abandon him in his time of suffering. That was the framing right up until Martin signed with Yamaha behind the scenes. But here is the part Aprilia do not advertise. According to multiple paddock reports, Aprilia were the ones who delayed Martin's 2027 contract offer in the first place. They waited. He found another option. By the time Noel tried to lock him down properly, the door had already closed. Loyalty went one way. Leverage went the other. That is the deal Aprilia made, and they are now living with what it actually meant. Now look back at Martin's quote. "We are teammates, and we are always going to try to help each other to beat the other brands." Read it cold. There is no commitment in that sentence. There is no loyalty. There is a contractual obligation to ride the same colour for the next 6 months. That is it. He has told the paddock, in the most diplomatic possible language, that he is not going to slow down. Not for the factory that gave him a second life. Not for the teammates sitting 1 point ahead. Not for anyone. This was never really about whether they get along. It was about who owns the championship. Because if Martin takes the title in 2026, he carries the #1 plate to Yamaha. Aprilia rebuild a man. The man wins them their first Premier Class World Championship. And the trophy gets ridden out of the garage in blue. That is not a sporting outcome. That is a corporate humiliation. And the factory currently cannot say a single thing to stop it, because to do so would be to admit that their long-term plan is already cracking under a man who will not even be there to see it through. So Aprilia have no good outcomes left. If they back Bezzecchi openly, they alienate a champion mid-season and look weak the next time they try to sign someone of Martin's calibre. If they stay neutral, Martin wins the title and walks. If they win the championship, they lose the championship. That is not strategy. That is paralysis dressed up as fairness. And Martin has 6 months left to make them feel every second of it. So, who really has the most to lose in 2026? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now.